Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammaṃ Sanghaṃ Namasami. So this is the sutta based around what's called Bāhiya's teaching. And I think that we can recognize it when I read it. But let's read it first of all. It will be repeated later on. Bāhiya's teaching. Bahiya, you should train yourself thus. In the seen will be merely what is seen. In the heard will be merely what is heard. In the sensed will be merely what is sensed. In the cognized will be merely what is cognized. Practicing in this way, Bahiya, you will not be because of that. When you are not because of that, you will not be in that. And when you are not in that, you'll be neither here nor beyond, nor in between the two. Just this is the end of suffering. Through this brief teaching, Bahiya was immediately enlightened. And that's a sutta which I'm sure you've heard before. It's a very, I would say, notorious teaching. So let us examine it. It's from the Udana. Bahiya was not a monk. The sutta does not record him giving dana, nor taking refuge in the triple gem, nor keeping any precepts. Moreover, the sutta has no mention at all of Bāhiya ever meditating, let alone reaching a jhana. Yet after receiving a very brief teaching from the Buddha, Bāhiya became fully enlightened, an arahant, within seconds. Oh good, you are watching it and scrolling, okay? This episode is very well known in Buddhist circles because it seems to make enlightenment so easy. It appears that you don't need to renounce. You can be miserly and not give dana. No ceremonies such as that of taking refuge are required. Precepts are unnecessary, and even meditating can be avoided. What a relief for some. All you need is intelligence, and everyone thinks that they are intelligent. Is anybody here who thinks they're not intelligent? Okay, thank you for helping out with the joke. This makes Bāhiya's teaching both attractive and notorious. As usual, there is more to the story than is recorded in the sutta. It is often the case that the suttas record only the highlights of a long episode. Just like the wedding photos did not record the first meeting, the dating and the proposal. So many suttas do not record all that occurred before the finale. So what is the full story of Bāhiya? How can we put the finale, captured for posterity in this Udana passage, into its full context? Fortunately, the whole story is recorded in the Upadana, called The Past Lives of the Arahants, and in the commentaries. And let's see what that story was. In his previous life, Bahiya was a monk under the Buddha Kassapa. Together with 6 other monks, he climbed a steep mountain, throwing away the ladder, and determined to remain on top of that rock until they became enlightened or died. One of the 7 monks became an arahant. Another became an anagami, non-returner. The other 5 died on the mountain. Bahiya was one of the 5. In Bahiya's final life, he was a sailor, successfully crossing the ocean 7 times. On the 8th voyage, he was shipwrecked, but managed to survive by floating ashore on a plank of wood. Having lost all his clothes, he made temporary garments out of bark and went begging for food in the town of Suparaka. The townspeople were impressed with his appearance and offered him food, respect, and even offered him a costly set of clothes. When Bahiya refused the new clothes, the people esteemed him even more. Bahiya had gained a comfortable living and so did not return to sea. The people regarded Bahiya as an arahant. Soon, Bahiya thought he was an arahant too. At that point, a deva, heavenly being, discerned the wrong thought of Bahiya and out of compassion reprimanded him. That deva was none other than his former fellow monk, one of the 7, the one who had become an anagami. It is of interest to add that the remaining 4 fellow monks were also reborn at this time, and they all, like Bahiya, eventually attained full enlightenment. But they actually became monks. They were Pukusati, Sabhiya, Kumara Kassapa, and Dabba the Malian, usually named Dabba Malaputa. Dabba the Malian, he became a novice when he was 7. He became enlightened very quickly afterwards as a novice. Then the Anagami Deva informed Bahiya about a true arahant, the Buddha, living at that time on the other side of India, at Savatthi. Bahiya immediately left Suparaka, present-day Sopara, just north of Mumbai, and reached Savatthi, which is just 17 kilometers west of Burhanpur, in one night. Bahiya met the Buddha in the morning while the Buddha was on alms round and asked for a teaching. The Buddha at first refused, for it was an inappropriate time. But on being asked a 3rd time, the Buddha interrupted his alms gathering and gave the famous teaching, the Bāhiya Sutta. Okay. Ask a 3rd time. The Buddha gave a sutta, gave a teaching, and called the Bāhiya Sutta, presented above. Within seconds of hearing that Dhamma, Bahiya was fully enlightened. And a few moments later, the arahant Bahiya was killed by a cow with calf. So Bāhiya's background was exceptional. He had been a monk under the previous Buddha, Kassapa. His powers of determination were so strong that he went to meditate on the mountain with the resolve to become enlightened or die in his previous life. In this life, he could hear devas speak to him, and he could travel more than halfway across India, some 1,300 kilometers, and I put in here, so I can't resist these opportunities, as the levitator flies. And he could travel more than halfway across India, some 1,300 kilometers as the levitator flies, in only one night. If you had such a background from your previous life, and had such psychic powers already in this life, then perhaps you would have been enlightened too when you heard Bāhiya's teachings a few minutes ago. How many of you were enlightened a few moments ago when we said exactly the same teachings? So Bāhiya's background was exceptional. He had been a monk under the previous Buddha. Oh, sorry, I mentioned that already. It is usually the case that one requires deep samadhi, jhanas. Samadhi means stillness. Jhanas to achieve such psychic powers. Certainly, Bahiya would have had a predisposition for meditation, taking account of his previous life, and the psychic power of the divine ear that enabled him to hear the deva, and the other psychic power that enabled him to travel so fast, suggested that he was practicing jhana before he heard the deva. Perhaps this was another reason why he thought himself an arahant. But there is more evidence to suggest that though it's not mentioned in the texts, Bāhiya had been practicing jhanas. Few people, I have found, are aware that the very same teaching that here I call Bāhiya's teaching was also given by the Buddha to the old monk Malunkyaputta. Here is that teaching. Am I going too fast? Okay. Venerable Malunkyaputta approached the Buddha and said to him, "Venerable Sir, it would be good if the Buddha would teach me the Dhamma in brief, so that having heard the Dhamma from the Buddha, I might dwell alone, secluded, diligent, ardent and resolute." Malunkyaputta, is the Buddha replying, "What should I say to the young monastics when an old monk like you, come to the last stage of life, asks me for an exhortation in brief? Although, Venerable Sir, I am old, let the Buddha teach me the Dhamma in brief. Perhaps I may understand the meaning of the Buddha's statement." What do you think, Malunkyaputta? Do you have any desire, lust, or affection for objects of sight that you may have not seen and never saw before, that you do not see and would not think might be seen? No, Venerable Sir. Do you have any desire, lust, or affection for those sounds cognizable by the ear, for those odors cognizable by the nose, for those tastes cognizable by the tongue, for those tactile objects cognizable by the body, for those mental phenomena cognizable by the mind, that you have not cognized and never cognized before, that you do not cognize and would not think might be cognized? No, Venerable Sir. Here, Malunkyaputta, regarding things seen, heard, sensed and cognized by you in the seen, there'll be merely the seen. In the heard, there'll be merely the heard. In the sensed, there'll be merely the sensed. In the cognized, there'll be merely the cognized. When Malunkyaputta, regarding things seen, heard, sensed and cognized by you, in the seen, there will be merely the seen. In the heard, there will be merely the heard. In the sense, there will be merely the sensed. In the cognized, there will be merely the cognized. Then, Malunkyaputta, you will not be by that. When Malunkyaputta, you are not by that, then you will not be therein. When Malunkyaputta, you are not therein, then you will be neither here nor beyond, nor in between the two. This is the end of suffering. I understand in detail, Venerable Sir, the meaning of what was stated by the Buddha in brief. Having seen a form with mindfulness distorted, attending to the pleasing sign, one experiences it with infatuated mind and remains tightly holding to it. Many feelings flourish within, originating from the visible form. Covetousness and annoyance, as well, by which one's mind becomes disturbed. For one who accumulates suffering thus, Nibbana is said to be far away. Having heard a sound, smelt an odor, enjoyed a taste, felt a contact, known an object with mindfulness distorted, for one who accumulates suffering thus, Nibbana is said to be far away. When mindfulness is without hindrances, one is not excited by the lust for whatever is seen. Say that again. When mindfulness is without hindrances, one is not excited by lust for whatever is seen. One experiences it with a dispassion and does not remain holding it tightly. One fares mindfully in such a way that even as one sees an experience of feeling, suffering is exhausted, not built up. For one dismantling suffering thus, Nibbana is said to be close by. When mindfulness is without hindrances, one hears a sound, smells an odor, enjoys a taste, feels a contact, knows an object. One is not excited by lust for objects. For one diminishing suffering thus, Nibbana is said to be close by. Sadhu, Malunkyaputta, it is good that you understand the meaning of what was stated by me in brief. The Venerable Malunkyaputta, delighted and rejoiced in the Buddha's words, rose from his seat, and after paying homage, keeping him on his right, departed. Later, dwelling alone, secluded, diligent, ardent and resolute, the Venerable Malunkyaputta, by realizing it for himself, with direct knowledge in this very life, entered and dwelt in that unsurpassed goal of the holy life. He directly knew, destroyed his birth. The holy life has been lived. What had to be done has been done. There is no more rebirth. and the Venerable Mālunkyaputta became one of the arahants. Now that's a greater explanation about what the Buddha means by the teachings of Bahiya. And this is what it worked. And also, I like mentioning that repetition and expansion of the Buddha's teaching in that Sutta to Mālunkyaputta, Samyutta Nikaya, the 35th section, Sutta 95. I like to mention that because it also ties in with some of the other teachings to Mālunkyaputta. I always said that Mālunkyaputta is one of my favorite suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya, as you'll soon find out. Mālunkyaputta also appears in Sutta 64 of the Majjhima Nikaya, where the Buddha begins by scolding Mālunkyaputta for his wrong view. Now please know that Mālunkyaputta in that sutta on Bāhiya's teaching was an old monk. It was one of the last teachings he would have heard from the Buddha. This particular sutta, number 64, in the Majjhima Nikaya would be a much earlier sutta given to that monk. It begins by scolding Mālunkyaputta for his wrong view, and his wrong view was that and then teaches the necessity of attaining at least one of the jhanas in order to know what the 5 lower fetters really are, and then relinquish them. There are 10 fetters stopping a person from becoming fully enlightened. The first 5 fetters stop a person from becoming an anagami. And those first 5 fetters, the Buddha said, you don't even know what they are until that you have experienced a jhana. As it said here, attain at least one of the jhanas in order to know what the 5 lower fetters really are, and then relinquish them. The Buddha said in front of Venerable Mālunkyaputta, it is impossible to achieve non-returning, let alone full enlightenment, without a jhana. And he gave this wonderful simile, just as much as it is impossible to reach the heartwood of a tree, the pith, without first going through its bark and sapwood. I'm not sure about you. When I heard that statement, you can't get to the heartwood of a tree without going through the bark and the sapwood. I spent about 10 or 15 minutes just trying to figure out a way to bypass the need to go through the bark and sapwood. Go another way. Is that at all possible? I've never figured it out. And of course I was just trying to outwit the Buddha. What a stupid idea that was. You need the jhanas in order to actually to get to even the first, it's certainly the 3rd stage of enlightenment. No, I quote it. There is one path only, Ananda, one way to the abandoning of the 5 basic fetters. It is impossible that anyone can understand or abandon these 5 basic fetters without relying on that path, no more than it is possible to cut out the heartwood from a tree without cutting through the bark and sapwood. What is that path? The 4 jhanas and the first 3 immaterial attainments. So Venerable Mālunkyaputta was first taught the necessity of jhana, and then later he was given Bāhiya's teachings. After hearing Bāhiya's teachings, dwelling alone, withdrawn, diligent, ardent and resolute, Malunkyaputta soon became an arahant. It is therefore certain that Malunkyaputta achieved jhanas before Bāhiya's teachings could be effective, or else the Buddha would be blatantly inconsistent. It also adds weight to the inference that Bāhiya also had experienced jhana before he heard the same teaching. Otherwise, he would have reached the heartwood of the tree without going through its bark and sapwood. So, what did Bahiya and Venerable Malunkyaputta see in the Buddha's words that generated the arahant experience? What does it mean, in the seen will be merely what is seen? What it means is to see without any distortion of the data, without adding or subtracting from it. As modern psychology knows, what comes to our attention as the seen has already been sifted and distorted by desires and aversions. This process of distortion occurs prior to the event of cognition. It is impossible to see this process as it occurs. It is subconscious. We can only infer its occurrence. We discover that our preferences have embellished the data to present to our mind what we wanted to see, while hostility has denied any access to the mind for those features that we didn't want to see. What we see is rarely merely the seen. That which we see with bare attention is seldom the truth. It is not the way things are. It is really the way things seem. The Buddha explained that it is the 5 hindrances that distort perception and corrupt our thinking. He called the 5 hindrances the nutriment that feeds delusion. The first hindrance, sensual desire, which selects what we want to see, hear, sense, and cognize. It often embellishes the truth. It presents to our consciousness the products of wishful thinking. The second hindrance, ill will, is that negative impulse that blocks us seeing, hearing, sensing, or cognizing what we don't want to know. It blinds us to what is unpleasant and what is contrary to our view. Psychology knows the second hindrance as a process of denial. The third hindrance is sloth and torpor. This does not distort what we see, hear, sense, or cognize. It buries it in a fog it buries it in the fog so that we are unable to discern clearly. The fourth hindrance, restlessness and remorse, which keeps our senses on the run so fast we do not have sufficient time to see, hear, sense or cognize fully. Sights do not have time to fully form on our retina before the back of the eye has another sight to deal with. Sounds are hardly registered when we are asked to listen to something else. The fourth hindrance of restlessness and its special case remorse, inner restlessness due to bad conduct, is like the over-demanding boss in your office who never gives you enough time to finish a project properly. And the fifth hindrance is doubt, which interrupts the gathering of data with premature questions. Before we have fully experienced the seen, heard, sensed or cognized, doubt interferes with the process like a cocky student interrupting the teacher with a question in the middle of the lecture. You should now be able to appreciate that it is these 5 hindrances that distort perception, corrupt the thinking, and maintain a deluded view. It is well known amongst serious students of Buddhism that the only way to suppress these 5 hindrances is through the practice of jhana. As it says in the Nalakapana Sutta, Ajahn 68, in one who does not attain a jhana, the 5 hindrances plus discontent and weariness invade the mind and remain. Anything less than jhana is not powerful and lasting enough to suppress the 5 hindrances sufficiently. So even if you are practicing bare mindfulness, with the 5 hindrances still active at a subconscious level, you are not seeing things as they truly are. You're not seeing things as they see. You are seeing things as they seem, distorted by the 5 hindrances. Thus, in order to fulfill the Buddha's teaching to Bāhiya and Venerable Mālunkyaputta, in order that in the seen will be merely what is seen, in the heard will be merely what is heard, in the sense will be merely what is sensed, and in the cognize will be merely what is cognized. The 5 hindrances have to be suppressed, and that means the jhana. I haven't gone on to the final part of Bāhiya's teaching, but I want to just pause for a moment if there are any questions so far. Have I talked for too long? Have you fallen asleep? Are there people who didn't hear that question? Any questions so far? Go on. What is enlightenment? That is when you find it out in the final part of Bāhiya's teaching. When in the seen there is just the seen, in the heard just the heard. You never make the sense of a self, of a me or a mine, out of all that experience you have of life. You realize that is our delusion. And then when we see through that, we know truly from our own experience, there is no me experiencing this. There's no me doing this. This is conditioned. And then you will never get reborn again. That process of rebirth will be ceased forever. That you realize this is your last life. Free at last. In brief. But this whole sutta's on brief teachings. So that's good enough. Any other questions? Yeah, go on, Drew.
So Ajahn, I've just been having a conversation recently with a lay friend of mine about stream entry, of course. I guess that's the goal of any lay person that's here, seriously. And we were reviewing the suttas, and are you saying here that for just the first stage stream entry, you must have mastery of the 4 jhanas, or maybe a taste of just the first jhana? Where do we sit? Where does a layman sit in regards to this?
Just the first jhana is enough.
But so,
If you
mastery?
have not mastery,
Okay.
you've had that experience
Uh-huh.
of a first jhana where all these things temporarily stop and just live in the realm of the mind for a while. And just that one experience, if it's long enough, deep enough, powerful enough, can leave such an impact on your mind, such a change. You can't deny it, it's your own personal experience. And then from that, it will destroy some of the fetters, the attachments, the way you've been conditioned over many lifetimes. And then you will be able to claim yourself that you are a stream winner. What usually happens, one experience is a minimum. Often you have many experiences. You have one, why not a few afterwards? It's very pleasant. But also, every time, when you can't think while you're in a jhana, but afterwards your mind is so clear. And the perceptions you have are just so powerful. I mentioned that to you, actually even just last Friday. The perceptions which you can recall so easily because your mindfulness has been amplified. You can see more clearly, you can remember it more clearly. You know that word which I often try to find an English word which means the same as trauma but without the negative connotations. A totally positive experience which again you cannot forget. Beautiful, powerful, and you can recall it so easily that means that you can go back there and keep looking, investigating. And so that's when that thinking can see it's totally irrational, illogical to look at this life, that there's a Drew behind all of this. And of course it makes it convenient to actually view and to have the idea that there is a self here somewhere. And that's why we'll always tend to try and twist the facts to suit our tendency to want to exist. But then when that view is actually seen, you can't deny it. And after a while, you keep looking so much again at life, having experienced the jhana, you can't deny it. Your view is perfected. Sometimes you forget that view. That's your stream winner, but not more than that. Sometimes you can perceive the world in sense of a self, or you were responsible, you did something. But you realize that that's a tendency which you cannot maintain for too long. That view is dying. The stream winner is a perfection of right view. And afterwards, what you do, you just keep looking back at those experiences. And sometimes, I remember this simile which I concocted. Sometimes it's like you look at your mind just after a deep experience of meditation. It's like a great explosion has gone on in the mind. And there's much damage there, like a bomb has gone off. But you have to wait till the dust settles to find out what has been destroyed, what still remains. But whatever's been remained, at least some of it has been weakened. A few more jhanas, and then a few more bombs go off, and then there's nothing left. All those wrong views get annihilated. Don't know if that makes sense to you.
Thanks, Ajahn.
Okay. Okay, let's continue on the final part of Bāhiya's teachings. because this explains much more about its purpose and result. Bahiya. You should train yourself thus. In the seen will be merely what is seen, in the cognized will be merely what is cognized. Practicing in this way, Bahiya, there's a few dots in there between. Bahiya, practicing in this way, Bahiya, you will not be because of that. When you are not because of that, you will not be in that. When you are not in that, you will be neither here nor beyond, nor in between these two. This is the end of suffering. What does it mean? You will not be because of that. The Pali is, just for those of you who are interested in the Pali, is nat tena. Tena is the instrumental of the word for that. Nat is a negative. It means literally not because of that, not through that, not by that. It means in essence you will not assume that there is a self, soul, or me because of, through, or by the seen, or the heard, or the sensed, or the cognized. The Buddha is saying that once you have penetrated the truth of sensory experience, by suppressing the hindrances, sujana, you will see that there is no doer, nor a knower behind sensory experience. No longer will you be able to use sensory experience as evidence for a self. I couldn't help but just mentioning Descartes' famous "I am because I think" is refuted. Simply, powerfully. You will not be because of thinking, nor because of seeing, hearing or sensing. In the Buddha's words, you will not be because of that or because of any sensory experience. When the sensory processes are discarded as tenable evidence for a self, a soul, or a me, then you are no longer located in the sensory experience. In the Buddha's words, you will not be in that. You no longer view, perceive, or even think that there is a me involved in life. Please excuse me, but I wrote this so many years ago that you can tell how long ago it was. I still remember as a kid just watching Star Trek. You no longer perceive or even think that there is a me involved in life. In the words of the Doctor in the original series Star Trek, it is life, Jim, but not as we know it. There is no longer any sense of self or soul at the center of experience. You are no more in that. And I kind of like to explain that a little bit more than I explained in this document many years ago. You're not in that, you don't exist in it. It is not important to you. You know that sometimes we exist in things we really love to do. We make it so important that, we just win the World Cup or we, make success in our careers. We're really in our career. Some people are like that. You feel you're not in that anymore. It's just sensory experience, that's all. And just to close off the loophole that you might think you can escape non-existence of a self or soul by identifying with a transcendental state of being beyond what is seen. You're not actually in the scene, but you're somewhere else. That you are beyond what is seen, heard, sensed, or cognized. The Buddha thunders, and you will be neither here with the seen, heard, sensed, cognized, nor beyond. outside of the seen, heard, sensed or cognized, nor in between the two, neither of the world nor beyond the world. The last phrase comprehensively confounded any sophists. In summary, the Buddha advised both Bāhiya and Venerable Mālunkyaputta to experience the jhanas to oppose the five hindrances, to suppress the five hindrances. Thereby one will discern with certainty the absence of a self or a soul behind the sensory process. Consequently, sensory experience will never again be taken as evidence of a knower or a doer, such that you will never imagine a self or a soul at the center of experience, nor beyond, nor anywhere else. Bāhiya's teaching put in a nutshell the way to the realization of no self, anatta. Just this, concluded the Buddha, is the end of suffering. Enlightenment requires all of the Noble Eightfold Path. It requires faith in the Triple Gem, keeping of precepts, and the practice of dana. There's only one path to Nibbana, and that is the Noble Eightfold Path. There are no shortcuts. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Questions? Yes? So someone with the...
Ajahn, I was just wondering, so there are two kinds of meditations, mainly samadhi and vidarshana?
No.
Is it the same?
I'm going to cut you off straight away there. You asked that same question a little bit earlier today. Sometimes people say that, but what is the type of meditation which is mentioned in the Eightfold Path? And even another quote comes to mind, the Gopika Moggallana Sutta. And this is, someone asked Ananda just after the Buddha passed away. Ananda, what type of meditation did the Buddha teach? And Ananda said the Buddha only taught 4 types of meditation. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. I'm just quoting. You can look it up for yourself if you wish. The idea of vipassanas, many modern books have come out to say, was a kind of effort by the Burmese tradition to make meditation a little bit easier. To make it a little bit easier by having this idea of a vipassana meditation, which was, a little bit easier than the jhanas. So at least not monks, but sort of lay people in Burma, when my ancestors, I take responsibility that my ancestors invaded Burma and actually took over the city of Mandalay, yeah. And after that, these books came out. Not original, but written by monks. What was it, a couple 100 years ago, 150 years ago. After any type of meditation, if practiced properly, would be to overcome the 5 hindrances. And the way the 5 hindrances are overcome is through jhana. And after that, then you can see clearly. When you see clearly, you can understand why. A monk like me keeps on saying, "Oh, come on now. What did the Buddha say?" You have to overcome those 5 hindrances first. Even to do the seventh factor of the Eightfold Path, Sammasati. Sometimes people say, oh, that's Vipassana. No, don't give it that name. Even to be able to do that mindfulness, you need to have weakened those 5 hindrances so much. Vinaya loke abhijja domanasang. Having already weakened, the loke abhijja and domanasang is the first 2 hindrances. And the way of Pali in those days was to say that those first 2 hindrances, when you mention the first 2 of a well-known group, it includes the whole 5. And also, that's exactly what the commentaries to the 2 Satipatthana suttas say. You've got to weaken those hindrances and almost totally overcome them. And then you can do Satipatthana. Have I got the point there? Did I not explain it clearly enough?
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yes?
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm, for the beautiful teaching. I just wanted to clarify about the 5 basic fetters you were speaking about.
Oh, yes.
And their relationship to the 5 hindrances.
Okay, what are the 5 basic fetters? 5 basic fetters are the idea of self, the view of a self, sorry? Yeah, and the second one is of, I might get them in the wrong order, doubt and ill will. And then after that, actually I got those wrong. So one is Siddhapata Paramasa. Kamachandra is the 4th one. That's why I said I got these wrong, the 4th of the 5 hindrances. And the next one is the Kamachandra, and the ill will is the 5th. Those ones are deeper teachings, deeper sort of fetters.
Thank you.
But why is it that if you overcome the Sakkaya Ditthi, that you're not enlightened? That's a question which I kind of contemplated years and years ago. You've seen the view of non-self clearly, but you haven't sort of overcome that the 3 things of sense. What is it? You haven't overcome that. Always that perception of a self. Sorry? Not the underlying tendency, just a basic sort of looking at the world in terms of a self, of anicca, dukkha, anatta. So what has happened? You've got the view straightened. So you can actually claim the stream winning. But it takes a while for that view, which you know is true, to start to seep in to all of your practice, all of the things you do. At the time when I first wrote these articles, I started trying to find a simile, and the best simile I could have is like a person who's addicted to smoking cigarettes. And of course that's very dangerous for your health and longevity. But the next thing one knows is bad for your health. You obviously know it. It's clear to you. That idea has been totally eradicated from you. But you still smoke because of the habitual tendencies have not been totally abolished. That's like a stream winner who's seen non-self, but hasn't really totally given it up yet to the point of being an arahant. But it's only a matter of time. At most 7 lifetimes. And it has to be seen through. And the arahant experience occurs. And that's just like I've just been saying, what is the difference between the non-self idea which has been eradicated by a stream winner and the non-self which has been eradicated by the arahant? What's been eradicated is the view. If you have a clear mind, you know you would not smoke, you know there's no self. But without that clear mind, then sometimes you act in life as if there was a self. That way of looking and thinking, which has been there for lifetimes, takes a while to totally eradicate. It's an automatic process, totally be eradicated once you've got the right view. Did I explain that clearly enough?
Thank you, Ajahn Brahm.
Okay. You've got some exercise now.
Thank you, Ajahn, for having written that, because your language is so clear and it's really refreshing to hear something like that read out in your language. It's very much easier than some of the things you read. It seems the process that you're describing, that we're actually unraveling the process of dependent origination.
Good.
Yes. That's it then, I'll just do that then.
Okay. Unraveling is a very good idea.
Yes.
We've been born into this world with one way of looking at life, and that way of looking at life is reinforced by the school we went to as kids, by our parents, and everyone else who has influenced us in our life so far. To see it clearly, it does take an unraveling. And that's a good word. And sometimes we see the Buddha's teachings and it inspires us. And sometimes we get so influenced by the power of the Buddha's teachings. And we see the same teachings, more into them every time. We see them deeper. And eventually, we see them so powerfully deep, especially after the meditations, when our mind is really powerful, can see much more into everything than we ever thought was possible. Even those similes which I keep on giving. You see a clump of bamboo in the botanical gardens which looks incredibly beautiful. Just captures your attention for days. And then you go and see it afterwards and it's vanished. The same clump of bamboo is there, but your ability to see it so deeply is gone. It's because the hindrances. So that's how we unravel things. More experience, we see things as it really is, and not as we're told to look at them. A personal experience which unravels the sense of delusion which has been put in to our cognitive processes. And we unravel that. Little by little we see more.
Perhaps an issue can be that because it's quite a work of art that we have done to create ourselves, you have a stake in it. And it's that stake in it that you kind of hold on to because it's yours.
And it's fearful to let go of it. And that fear which we have when we renounce, say, make peace, be kind, be gentle. The real word for that first phrase, make peace, is like renounce. Renounce is a powerful word. The usual word is let go. Relinquish, give up. It is powerful. But after a while, nothing else to do. Thank you. I know you have to put your hands up and it has to get there.
So, Ajahn Brahm, if those who are enlightened, they will not be rebirthed to this world again. Does it mean this is the reason why the world is more and more suffering in this world because those who have enlightened, they're gone?
No, I think because those who have become enlightened, we remember them. Honestly, that I always claim, and of course, how can you do this, Ajahn Brahm? Always claim that Ajahn Chah was a fully enlightened being when he passed away. And then he's gone. He inspires me. And that inspiration goes to his students. And that is the most important. And that helps more people become enlightened. The students and the students of the students. So when one person becomes enlightened and then they pass away, don't get reborn, it doesn't mean that everything is lost now. It means in that path to enlightenment, how many teachers did Ajahn Chah teach? How many understood? It's a huge number. Why have we got very strong Buddhism in Australia now? Okay, who's the next with a question? Ananda.
Thank you, Ajahn, and very, very nicely, very brief, very succinctly put in, and maybe it's a good thing to put this on the website if it is all right. And it's
Is it usually put on the website?
It is not usual. It is?
It is, great. Good.
Okay, good. And my question is, Ajahn, that in SN 3595 Malukaputta Sutta, Buddha explained, as you very clearly explained, that brief teaching. Can you look at it from another angle? Where you used the word Buddha thunders somewhere. I remember you used the word Buddha thunders that through his teaching, and Buddha thundered in another sutta to explain that to Dandapani in the Madhupindika Sutta.
Yeah.
That he said that the self is created through proliferation. So is that another way of looking at understanding Bāhiya's brief teaching, Ajahn?
It could be, if you have just in the scene, just the scene, don't add to it. But in particular, I like the way that he expanded that teaching to Malunkyaputta, and how Malunkyaputta was one of my favorite monks for many years, simply because it was to him. They said you can't, even become you can't even understand what the first 5 of the samyojanas are without a jhana. And that was, I remember just even arguing with Bhikkhu Bodhi once. And I said, look, this is what it said there. You can read it in Pali. And he said, no, it must be some other way of seeing, understanding the the samyojanas without having to get into jhanas. How can you say that? It was just so clear. Yeah.
Yes, very clear.
So it was a kind of a powerful teaching in Malonkiyaputta. And then the Malonkiyaputta was the second monk who was given that teaching of the Bahiya Sutta. So I was just trying to make sure how you can put the Bahiya Sutta teachings in the context of the Eightfold Path. And I was saying that because it is true that we have finales, and that's what we take the photos of. We have when a person, they invent something or whatever and get the Nobel Prize and get a big sort of offering. Those finales are what is kind of newsworthy. The Venerable Munisara becomes a bhikkhuni. Yay! And all that work to get to being a bhikkhuni, it's not easy. But then you got there. Yay! And we all remember that. But we don't remember often the struggle and the striving and the difficulties to get to that state. Bahiya's teaching was that finale, expanded to Malonkiyaputta and put in context of the whole Eightfold Path. There's no easy way. Actually, that this is the easy way. But there's no sort of ways of, do I really have to do that? Do I have to do that? The answer is yes. Eightfold Path. If there was a sevenfold path, it was one of those things you didn't have to do, the Buddha would have told you. And the monks would not be hiding it, because they'd be wanting to do it themselves. Eightfold Path. Beautiful.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you.
Yeah, Alana?
Ajahn Brahm, thank you so much for this sutta. It was an interesting sutta that I've not come across before. I remember recently I read, again, Ajahn Chah's quote saying about, if you think that others are worse or not as good as you, is incorrect. If you think that others are equal as you, is incorrect. And if you think that others are better than you, is also incorrect.
That's correct. Some things are correct. That's correct.
He said because there is no we.
Yeah.
And that's where this non-self comes. And I was baffled by that, by Ajahn Chah's that statement. And when you shared this sutta, I was like, okay, how all these sensories, all the things that you hear and you see that's happening around you, there are disputes, conflicts going around, and personally, I've experienced that, and it has caused some anger in me and doubts, and I was like, what do you mean by there's no self? All these things that is happening around us, I'm dealing with this person did this and that, and I don't know, is it too much of, we're focusing too much on the right and wrong and the good and bad, and
Yeah, you could say that.
and just having all these arguments, non-stop arguments with each other in our lives, in the world.
It takes two to have an argument, and I'm not involved. Even if I say things, I'm not in the argument. Don't be in it. Don't be away from it. Don't be in between. Don't locate an identity anywhere there. And you're free.
It's a weird feeling when eventually when I understood that not to be in it and not to be part of it, it's actually a weird feeling.
Yes, but it's nice.
It's like the petals, the layers have been stripped off, and but it also felt more vulnerable at the same time.
Actually, it usually feels much safer.
Yeah, okay.
Superficially vulnerable, but deep down, it can't be harmed. You don't let that happen. Not my fault. I didn't do anything. Sometimes I like just telling little stories like that. But Ajahn Brahm, you've been accused of something which you never did. Fine. No need to fight it. I just go to jail, and I can have... Even Venerable Radha taught a meditation retreat in jail. So I probably get more time to be on retreat if I go to jail than if I carry on here.
Would I say that it'd be like a blessing in disguise that actually if something bad happened, it's actually a good learning lesson? And
Yeah, not just learning, but I can relax. Okay, it's
Thank you.
11 minutes past 4 now. Is there anybody else wants to say something, or can we just have a end now? Please excuse me, but I like endings. Great. Arahant Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavaṃ Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami